And hello and welcome. My name is Martin, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding materials to the outside of our environment and meshes that are going to dress up the environment a little bit and make it look a little bit more realistic as opposed to just a very plain sort of brick floor. So to do that, what we're going to do, well, actually, before we start, you really need a couple of packs to download. So in the last video, what we did was we showed you how to download packs. And in this tutorial, what we'll be using is the water materials pack. And I'm using the Infinity Grasslands pack. I believe that's actually where most of my trees are coming from, but there may be a couple of trees that are coming from some other packs. So just, you know, if you don't find exactly the same tree that I have, don't worry about it. Just make sure you have a bush, a tree, and some grass. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to change this floor a little bit to kind of create the sensation of like a lawn of grass. The best way to do this would be to grab that geometry, put it on the floor. We're going to make the height of this, the the z-axis, the blue one, we're going to make this 1. So it becomes a plane, so it doesn't have any thickness to it. From there, we can start deciding how big we need this to be. So let's hit 500 by 500. That'll create a little patch of grass. Maybe let's extend not the x-axis, but the y-axis. Yeah, so then that way it takes up a little bit more space. Okay. And let's actually make the y-axis a little bit shorter and move this back. So that way it'll fill in that area. And then from there, I'm going to hit the N key, which will then place it on the floor. And at this point, I'm ready to start putting a material on this and then making it look like grass. So I'm actually going to pull it a little bit this way. I want a little bit of a border for sort of like the foundation of the house and where the pillars are going to be going into, but the rest of this is going to be grass. And I'm actually going to line that up with the wall and the brick. Okay. All right, so from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be in my contents folder. I'm going to type in the word grass. And you should have a mix of different things that show up. From here, what we're really looking for is the material first. So remember how we set up filters in the last tutorial, and we're going to filter out materials, and I'm just going to grab a material and place it on there. Okay, so that actually looks fairly good. The only thing is I want it to extend all the way to the back. So let's make this just a little bit wider. Let's say 500 this way. Let's make it 1300 that way and then pull it back. A little bit more. Let's go 1500. And that should be good. Just want to see if anything, a little bit of it came out the backside, but if we're never going to see that as a player, then it doesn't really matter. Okay, so the next thing that I need to do is fill the back area up with grass. So I'm just going to make a copy of this. So Control C, Control V, hit the space bar to turn it, and then hit the space bar a couple more times to add it in this direction. Okay, and from here, obviously that needs to go back a little bit further to the wall. So let's expand that out a bit and then do the same thing and move that back. And then what I'm doing is I'm just looking at how much I'm giving it, and it looks like I'm giving it about 1 brick distance here. So I'm going to give it about that much, and then I'm going to move this one over. All right. And let's put some grass going around the back side here, at least up to this point. So we're going to do another copy. So Control C, Control V. and just drag that over. And I want that to match up with the other. So this is going to be the longer one is going to be, sorry, the shorter one is going to be 500. So maybe a little bit smaller. Let's say maybe 300. Okay, very good. Okay, so if you overlay, you may end up seeing little things like this where the pattern starts to break up. So in that situation, what I would do is I would just not let them overlay so that you don't get that situation. So that I believe is the, and we'll just move it over. Maybe a little bit wider, and then we'll move it over. And then I just want to make sure I don't have a gap. Oops. Okay, very good. Now, any of these other lines, there's actually different ways that we can get rid of being able to see them. So we won't be able to actually end up seeing that, and actually that's pretty good. It's actually very difficult to actually see the line. Maybe if you scanned across it really fast, you might be able to detect it, but not so much. Okay, so we got a nice little kind of grass area in the back. Let's see, maybe I might continue this. Let's make one more of these. Control C, Control V. And let's make it to where it comes out this way. And then maybe one more. And this one I'm going to rotate. All right, very, very cool. So now we have something more or less that looks like grass. The only thing we kind of got to do is blend these a little bit closer together or put things in the way that's going to kind of block the fact that they are, you know, like there we can kind of see the line because they're not actually touching there. Okay, so now that I have that, what I'm going to do is let's introduce a little bit of grass that actually sticks up above the plane. So this is flat two-dimensional grass. This time, instead of it being a material, I'm actually going to go to filters and let's go to, do they have one for mesh? Oh, there they are right there. So static mesh. And we still have the word grass there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab, let's say that grass, and drop it over the top. And what we should get are like blades of grass. So let's just drop that in there and wait for that to actually build. And sometimes these things are going to have a little bit of like influence by the quote unquote wind. They have some effects in them. Let's click off of them so you can kind of see what they look like that, right? So that's some pretty wild grass. That's somebody who has like not mowed their lawn. So let's grab that one. That might be a little bit too much. Now, if it was a little bit too tall, we could always probably go in and use some scaling to kind of push that down a little bit and make it not quite as tall. Let's see if that gives us what we're looking for. It's okay. It's not great. Let's delete that and see if we don't have some other grass. So we use that one. Let's use large clump. Let's see what large clump looks like. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Again, I'll probably just squeeze it down a little bit. And let's click off of it. And what we'll do is we'll just make a couple of copies of this. Control C, Control V. Next one I'll rotate a little bit. Click off. And there might be a situation where you have too much. So let's pull that back a little bit. Maybe open it up here. Okay. I'm not super liking that, so we're actually just going to delete both of those grasses. And for now, if you had like grassland, that might work really well. But for here, it looks kind of weird because it looks like somebody hasn't like mowed their lawn. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to move from this to, let's say, let's add a tree. Let's go and add our tree. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create like a little fountain area back here in the back. So I'm going to drop a couple of trees just to see where I might want a tree to be. So let's grab that tree and drop it. Let's grab, once that one's built, we'll drop another one. Okay, let's drop this one there. And let's wait for those two to get built out. Again, placement is important. You don't want branches going into other objects, so if you need to rotate the tree around, you can. The other thing too is not all the trees need to be the same height. So maybe with this tree, what we'll do is we'll make it a slightly smaller tree than the tree that's over here. Let's move this guy in the corner. Very cool. And let's actually maybe set up a row of, let's say like a row of these kind of trees. Some pine trees. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because we have 4 of exactly the same kind of tree, and if you do a doubling like this without any variation, it's going to look very obvious that they're exactly the same tree. So what I'm going to do is create a little variance by, let's say, turning this one a bit. Maybe we'll make this one a little bit shorter, flatten it out a little bit. Let's say this one, we'll actually make this one taller, make this one a little bit smaller, maybe we'll widen it out a bit, and this one will widen out this way, and we'll make that one a little bit taller. So now you've got, and actually it still looks kind of like a pattern. Let's actually shrink that one a little bit more. So if you do have a couple of different trees, then I would suggest, maybe adding something that's not exactly the same. So I kind of like these two together, this one and let's make with this one go away. So instead of that one, let's add this one. Because remember, in nature, there's not going to be that sort of consistent same, at least not in the randomness of trees being there. Now, if it was cut lawn and they all have like, you like a pampered lawn or whatever. There you may have, depending on the style of tree, trees that look the same, but generally not so much. All right, cool. So we got a couple of trees. Let's type in here bush, just so that we can add a couple of bushes. Maybe some like edging. Let's see, like maybe a couple of bushes here. That's quite a big bush. We do have bush 1, bush 2, bush 3. This one is bush 4. Whoops, grabbed the wrong thing. Okay, very cool. So now we have a couple of bushes. Not everything's exactly the same height. A little bit of rotation. Let's add a slightly different bush in here just for some variation. Let's grab a bush 2. Okay, there we go. Nice. Okay. So that's as easy as it is to add trees and start to make this thing look a little bit. And actually, I don't like that tree. The material there is bad. So we might have to change that tree out or put a more, something that looks solid for that tree. See, let's select that. This is what the pine is doing. This is supposed to be the sole bark. Go to tree, but material. That looks like bark. There we go. So now we got something solid for that. And the branches are, I guess, still there. Yeah, it's not the greatest tree. I don't like it as much as the ones next to it. Looks kind of poly now. Okay, we'll get rid of that one. Is that a cherry tree? See what that thing looks like when it comes in. Okay, so this is good. This is a very active tree with wind, and the trees next to them don't have any type of animation. So if you're going to put trees next to each other that might be moving around in the wind, because they've got something like that, you might want to keep those all on the same side, or not put them right next to another tree that's not going to be, moving in any way. So I probably wouldn't use that one either. So at this point, let's just make 3 of them, give them a little bit more space in between, and then I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so that's the end of this tutorial. In the next tutorial, what we'll do is we'll actually create a little small water area right here and try to blend, I guess, that little line in a little bit better. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. A lot of this is kind of fun. It's just decorating, but decorating outside. We saw how we were able to change the material here and then make it look like we have a little bit of a lawn area available or placed around the house. Okay, so have fun decorating the outside of your structure, and in the next video what we'll do is we'll work with a little bit of water and create a small waterfall for ourselves. Okay, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.